It's story time with Nova and Mom. Today my special guest is my mom. She will be doing the story for today.
The Lion Little Book of Bedtime Stories, retold by Elena Pasquale, illustrated by Nicola Smee. The Crocodile Feast, a story from India. Of all the animals, deer was the cleverest. She knew where to find the tastiest leaves and the sweetest water. One day, as she drank from the river, the crocodiles came and washed there greedily. Deer only just missed the snapping jaws of the biggest crocodile. "Oh dear," she whimpered, "and I so wanted to cross the water. Just look at the golden fruit on the other side." After a while, she stepped forward. The crocodiles lifted their eyes to look. "Oh, great crocodile," said Deer, "forgive me. Lord Tiger sent me to count you all. He wants to give you a feast." "Oh, delicious," said the crocodiles. "Please line up side by side so I can count," said Deer. "Come on, Crocs," ordered the great crocodile. "This is important." Deer stepped lightly onto the first crocodile, then the next. She went on leaping and counting until, "Oh my," she said, "I'm on the other side. I won't be able to go and tell Tiger about the feast. But just look at this fruit." The crocodiles were furious, but it did no good. Their greed had let them be tricked. Count the Donkeys, a story from Palestine. Once a man went to market to buy some donkeys. He counted them all. As he led them away, a chicken ran in front of them, and they all took fright. The man went running to catch them. At last he said, "I have my donkeys back." He clambered into the quietest, tied the others in a line, and set off. "I'll just count again," he said. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh dear. He clambered off his donkey, tied the animals to a tree, and plodded back to look. He met a man with a flock of geese. "Have you seen a donkey?" he asked. The goose herd shook his head. Sorrowfully, the man walked back to the tree. There he saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hurrah! Number 5 came back by itself, he said. He untied the animals, clambered into the quietest, and set off. "I shall count my animals one last time," he said. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh no! He clambered off his donkey. A woman came by leading a cow. "Have you seen a donkey?" he said. "Only those 5, the woman answered. "My goodness," said the man, "number 5 is back. Donkeys are such silly animals, aren't they?" "Are you sure they're the silliest?" asked the woman. Greedy Monkey, a story from Pakistan. Once there was a monkey who always felt hungry. He liked to eat and was happiest among the forest trees that were full of fruit. But that time came when there was very little fruit. Monkey swung from tree to tree looking for something to nibble. But there was nothing. Then he stopped. He could smell food. Yes, he was sure of it. He looked all around. Then he spied a hole part way up a tree. At once he scrambled close to look. Inside was a hoard of nuts. He reached inside and grabbed as many nuts as he could hold. But his hand was so full that he couldn't pull his fist out of the hole. A big bird flew by. "You'll have to let some go," said the bird. Monkey shook his head. "I'm hungry. I want them all." He pulled and pulled, but still his fist stayed stuck. In the end, he let his fistful go. "I don't want any stupid nuts," he said. With both hands free, he swung away. Then the squirrels came and each took a nut from the store. "One for me, one for you." The Two Frogs, a story from Japan. There was once a frog who lived in the Japanese city of Osaka. He could see the many boats that sailed in and out of its harbor. Another frog lived in the royal Japanese city of Kyoto. He could see the temples and the palaces and the gardens full of cherry blossom. Between the two cities was a high hill. "I should love to go to Kyoto," said the Osaka frog. "I should love to go to Osaka," said the Kyoto frog. And though they did not know it, they each got ready to travel on the same day. So it was by chance that they met at the top of the hill. They both sat silent for a while. "If only I could glimpse Osaka from here," said the Kyoto frog. "I would know if my journey is worth the effort." "And I," said the Osaka frog, "would love to see what I think of Kyoto." The grass was tall, so they helped one another to stand. But although their noses pointed the way they wanted to go, when they were upright, their eyes looked backwards. "Now I can see." "Thanks." "Kyoto is just like Osaka," said the Osaka frog. "Osaka is just like Kyoto," said the Kyoto frog. And with that, each went home, none the wiser. The Nightingale, a story from Hans Christian Andersen. The Emperor of China stood in the moonlight and listened to the nightingale. Then he clapped his hands with delight. "What a joyful melody!" He said to his servants, "Bring the bird to my palace. It will live in a golden cage and sing to me when I am sad." Now the nightingale had been chosen among the birds to chase away bad dreams and sad thoughts. It agreed to come to the palace, and every evening it sang. The emperor was happier than he had ever been. The servants were happier than they had ever been. The emperor's daughter was the happiest of all. But as time went by, the nightingale began to long for the silver moon and the cool night breeze and the shadows of the dark woods. And the one who could chase away sadness itself grew sad. One day the Emperor of Japan sent a gift. With it was a letter. "Great Emperor," it began, "I have heard how much you love the song of the nightingale. This mechanical bird will sing whenever you wish." The mechanical nightingale was magnificent, proudly perched and covered in bright jewels. Its song was a delight. "Wonderful," said the emperor. Then he spoke to his daughter. "You can send that dismal gray bird home. We don't need it anymore." The months went by and the emperor forgot the woodland bird until the mechanical bird broke. The emperor was first angry and then sad. And as the weeks passed without song, he grew sadder. The emperor's daughter made a plan. She planted the seed of a tall and twining plant below a palace window. Late one summer evening, when the plant's white flowers were in bloom, the nightingale came back. The Busy Baker, a story from France. The baker was busy kneading the dough. A snowball hit his window. He wiped his hands on a cloth and went to the door. "Don't you get in the way of my baking," he shouted at the children. "You'll all be wanting your fresh bread in the morning." He slammed the door before they could even say sorry. He finished kneading and shaped the dough into loaves. "Now I'll just sit down a moment while the oven heats up," he said. He sat down in a flowery old armchair and closed his eyes. But what was that? The loaves were sitting up. They were changing shape. They were dough children. "Come on, Mr. Baker," they said. The dough children dashed outside and began making snowballs. "Let's play," they said. And in spite of himself, the baker started making snowballs. "Now for some fun," he said, as he tossed them at the children, dough children and real children together. As the children dodged and darted, the baker found he was nimbler than he thought. Suddenly, the baker woke up. The kitchen door had blown open, and his shoulders were cold. The oven was hot, though. He slid the loaves inside. Then he rummaged in his cupboard before measuring and mixing, making and baking. When the families came for their Christmas bread, what a treat was in store. "Gingerbread boys and girls for everyone," cried the baker, "and a happy Christmas." The Wise Man and the Thief, a story from the Far East. The wise man who lived at the edge of the wood was in his garden hoeing the weeds. A thief came out of the shadows, brandishing a sword. "Your money or your life," he shouted. The wise man looked up. "I'm rather busy," he said. "The money is in the drawer of the table." "Give me the money. Help yourself." The thief was rather startled by this, but even so he hurried inside and swept the coins into his purse. The wise man came to the door. "I meant to ask," he said, "if you would leave just one coin. I needed to pay the rent on my home." The thief had never been stopped in the middle of a robbery before. Astonished, he tossed a coin onto a table and ran out. "You forgot," called the wise man, "to thank me. That's not polite." The thief stopped, feeling bewildered. Very kind of you. Thank you very much," he said. "Excuse me." Thanks." A few days later, the town clerk came to visit the wise man. With him was a soldier, and the soldier had the thief in handcuffs. "We have reason to believe," said the clerk, "that this man robbed you as he has robbed others." "Not me," said the wise man. "I gave him the money. He thanked me for it." Because of what the wise man said, the thief did not spend too long in prison. While he was there, he felt sorry for all he had done. When he came out, he decided to change his ways. "Can you teach me about gardening?" The Water and the Well, a story from Iran. There was once a farmer who had many sheep. The sheep had lambs, and then the farmer had more sheep. "I am pleased to have so many," he said to himself, "but my pond is too small to provide them with water." He went to his neighbor. "You have a well in the field next to mine," he said. "Will you sell it to me so I have water for my sheep?" The neighbor agreed. The very next day, the farmer put out a trough for his sheep. He took a bucket and went to the well for water. The neighbor came running up, shaking his fist. "How dare you steal my water?" he shouted. "I'm not a thief," said the farmer. "You sold me this well, and I paid what you asked." "I sold you the well," said the neighbor. "I did not sell you the water." The two men could not agree, so they went and asked a judge to decide. The judge listened carefully as the farmer explained how and why he had bought the well. Then the judge turned to the neighbor. "What is the problem with what this farmer says?" he asked. "I sold the farmer my well," said the neighbor. "I did not mention the water. My price did not include the water. Taking the water will cost extra." The judge looked at one man and then at the other. He looked at the ceiling and down at his book. He closed his eyes and sighed. Then he opened his eyes and leaned forward. "You sold the well," he said to the neighbor, "and that means you no longer have the right to keep your water in it. Either you take your water out or you pay rent to the farmer for keeping it in his well." But while the water remains and you pay no rent, the farmer may treat it as his. The King's Highway, a World Story. The king stood on the palace balcony, beaming with delight. Messengers have brought good news, he told his chancellor. I am now king of all the lands around. I am going on a journey to visit them all. And when I come back, I want to ride along a great highway paved with marble. The chancellor looked where the king was pointing. Your Majesty, he said, the highway would run straight through farms and gardens. Look, you can see people hoeing and weeding from here. That's a problem for you to solve, said the king. I will be back in 6 months. The chancellor had to do as he was told. He sent the messengers to warn the people that the king needed their land. Then he sent workers to tear up the farms and gardens and build the road. After 6 months, the road was ready, gleaming marble pavestones wide enough for the king's procession. But the king's tour of his lands took longer than expected. News came that he would not be back for another year, and in that time the sun shone, the rain fell. By the edge of the highway and under the marble paving, seeds began to grow and grow and grow, and the people laughed as they gathered armfuls of flowers and baskets of vegetables. Then the king arrived without warning and summoned the chancellor to his camp outside the city. The highway, he said to the chancellor. What sort of highway is this? I am the ruler of all the lands around. But you see, said the chancellor, you may think you rule the lands because you rule the people, but you cannot rule the earth itself. Instead of a royal procession, may I suggest a harvest feast? And the king said, yes. Now the day is over, night is drawing nigh, shadows of the evening steal across the sky. Now the darkness gathers, stars begin to peep, birds and beasts and flowers soon will be asleep.